This panel is entitled Marketing Opportunities, Launching and Improving Your Bottom Line Without Going Under. It is sponsored by Community Choice Credit Union, International Outdoor, and Kairos Labs. Let's welcome our first panelist. Dr. Jason Abate is the National Sales Director from Community Choice Credit Union. Jenna Mullins is the Chief People Officer of Muha Meds. Mansour Oram is the Chief Operating Officer of International Outdoor. Sky Patel is the co-founder of Kairos Labs. And Willy Vlasic, CEO, Vlasic Labs. Willy, I'd love to start with you.
Hello.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Derek. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. Your family comes from a long line of entrepreneurs, companies almost 100 years old. I think a lot of people have heard the Vlasic name, but would love to hear a little bit about the family history, and then tell us, how did you guys arrive on cannabis?
Sure. So my great-grandpa started Vlasic Pickles back in the 1920s in Michigan. It was a small wholesale pickle game with some sauerkraut, and he ended up buying a sweet, crunchy pickle recipe from a guy in New York and decided to put our last name on it, Vlasic, our Croatian name, and made it Vlasic to Americanize it. He built it up to be a small Midwest pickle company, and my grandfather was the one that really took it global and blew it up, turned it into the #1 pickle in the world with 90 million Americans eating them, and sold it to Campbell's Soup about 45 years ago. But incredible story how they, they were poor immigrants from Croatia, and they hustled and went after the American dream, and we're just trying to carry on their legacy at the end of the day.
So it's an incredible American story, success story. At what point did you raise your hand and say, I like weed?
So it would have been in high school. Had some adversity with my parents. My dad sitting in the crowd over there, actually Rick Vlasic. We call him Pickle Rick.
Pickle Rick.
Make sure to say hi at some
Pickle
point.
Rick.
But there was a lot of adversity between me and my parents in high school from the age of 15 to 19, really. Ended up selling cannabis on the illicit market in Miami, Florida during college, which was not something a Vlasic should be doing. And, came home, and they knew that I had this love for the plant, but they had a lot of worries about the illegality around what I'd been doing and, the potential harm that could come to me from that, either from the legal system or who knows what. And so I got a medical card, and it was a long journey, but somehow convinced my parents to let me grow 12 plants in the basement about 9 years ago, and started there and then worked our way up. Now we've got a grow in Las Vegas. We sold our grow here in Michigan back in the day, and we've also exited a vertical down in Missouri. So started with some small basement ops, and then doing some small investments with other brands that I worked for, and along the way, we realized why not make this our own and create our own brand. So we created Vlasic Labs, which is a CBD only at first, and now venturing the family name into cannabis as well.
And how are you evaluating some of the marketing opportunities state to state? I mean, it seems like when you go from state to state, it's really like a different country in terms of how they deal with the licensing process. How do you evaluate where are you guys going next?
Making sure you have good partners and good people on the ground in each state. Just because you're successful in Michigan doesn't mean you're going to crush it in Nevada. And really understanding the compliance regulations in each of those states for what you're doing, whether that be regulated THC through metric or selling CBD products nationally. We sell the CBD to 46 different states, but we sell them to mostly regulated cannabis dispensaries. So, trying to stay in compliance with, FDA compliance on the CBD side, and then also being up to par for what the dispensaries expect is incredibly difficult to navigate, and so just realizing that just because you crush it in one state doesn't mean, you should go do 3 more immediately, and treating every one of them as their own opportunity, and really looking at what's gonna vibe with the community there, and taking a grassroots approach to it versus just spending money to spend money.
Yeah, Dr. Jason, I'd like to come to you in terms of evaluating opportunities. First and foremost, what's new and exciting at Community Choice?
There's a lot going on at Community Choice, and we're really expanding our program. and we're even venturing into some different states nationally, and so we're super stoked about that. And we're also going through massive rebranding, some great new pricing, and really just want to show our support, boots on the ground, to this community who should be very proud of themselves for what you've built here. So that's what we're up to.
Can you tell us, did we get any good news out of the election Tuesday night as it relates to cannabis banking, and what are your thoughts on where this could go for the next 12 to 24 months?
It's a great question because, you know, it's a bit controversial in the sense where I don't know anybody can really, if anyone could really say what President-elect Trump is going to say or do, but I think it's pretty obvious he's very cannabis friendly in this regard. But the bigger picture, I think, really is the classification. And so, you know, there's already something in motion, as most of you know, from going from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. And that really sort of, because it's in the DOJ's hands and the DEA's hands, is sort of outside of even the presidency at this point, and it's in motion. In fact, December 2nd, I believe, is their next hearing. And if that happens, it will impact everyone in this room and everyone in a good way. It could possibly provide some nice tax implications, but it will also help with the stigma of cannabis. And just something interesting you may or may not know, 91% of Americans in the entire country are in favor of medical cannabis, according to Pew Research. So the stigma is already getting better. And I think politically, that's very important to understand, because I've been to Washington, I've been inside of the White House, I've met with the president, I've met with every U.S. senator and every U.S. congressperson in regards to cannabis. And all but one, and I won't mention who that was, from Michigan, and by the way, that one person who was not in favor of it told me, look, it's nothing personal, I'm just older, you're never going to convince me, but I respect what you're trying to do. Every other legislator supports what we're doing and supports what we're doing here, so that was very, very good. And so I guess the bottom line is I don't think the election's going to have as great of an impact as people may or may not think. I think it's really the schedule hearing that we need to really focus on, because that will have wonderful implications for this community.
Let's talk a little bit more about the community here in Michigan. I mean, we hear the price compression, people feel it in their pocketbook. What are some of the either programs or opportunities that they may not be thinking about, and why they should come visit with you?
Well, I think that, you know, this industry in cannabis is, you know, it's very different, obviously, than what traditional banking looks like in most spaces. So, and I've learned that quite quickly. And so, you know, I think when we see a business that we really, we see some value, that they're really trying to be part of this community, it's really important for us to get to know them and understand their needs. And everybody has a different approach. And I think a lot of businesses in this space are going to need to look at innovating their approach, because the price of flower, for instance, I mean, from 400 down to like 80, because it's so saturated, is going to require a lot of people to re-innovate and rethink things from a marketing perspective. And so we're interested in taking it very slow and looking at every single business and what their individual needs are, because people are coming out with some pretty cool things that even are, you know, they blow our mind every day, and we're really excited for them. So keep up the good work, everybody.
Let's talk to Jenna Mullins, the Chief People Officer at Muha Meds. Welcome, Jenna.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having us.
A pleasure, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about the Muha Meds story and what's exciting for the company.
Absolutely. So the Muha Meds story actually comes from California, Los Angeles, California in 2018. Our owners decided to move into the black market and then transitioned over to the white market brand. In 2021, we actually purchased a small area to work for white labeling for an organization, and our brand did so great that all of a sudden we were purchasing the entire building. We have 198 employees. We're looking at opening another production facility here in Michigan. We currently have 3 retails with another opening, and super excited to open production in Missouri.
So this part of this panel is also about improving your bottom line, and I'm sure that that's a big part of what you think about day in and day out. Can you help us with some examples of what you're doing on the HR side of things that maybe provide some intel to the audience about maybe some of the ways that you think about HR and how they can optimize?
Absolutely. From a marketing standpoint, I think one of the biggest failures that organizations are doing is forgetting the people. One of the biggest things that's going to move your brand forward is going to be your employees. They are your biggest brand ambassadors. They're going to be your biggest cheerleaders. They're also going to be your biggest critic. They're the ones that know the brand through and through, regardless of whether the owner has, formulated the brand. It has changed so much that now the employees are the ones that are the hands-on. So I think that it's definitely making sure that we listen to our employees and give them the respect and transparency that they deserve in this organization.
Thank you. Thank you. Mansour Oram, Chief Operating Officer, International Outdoor. I'm not sure on the last count of the billboards that the company owns. I think it's north of 100. It's a combination of static and digital, and never in my wildest dreams growing up as a child that I think I'd see free weed on billboards on 75 or 94, but these are the times that we're in. Tell us a little bit about, on the marketing side of things, I know you have some unique case studies that you guys have put some effort and resources into to help retailers understand how to leverage billboards, how to leverage marketing.
Yeah, it's the industry itself has been progressing, pretty fast in the last few years, and that's the age-old question of, is my marketing working? And now we're, primarily due to cell phone data, we're able to see that a user might be able to go buy a board and go back into a store or go to a website. So we're able to do these different case studies where we can create test groups of consumers that drive on the roadway, and then transition, into a transaction, hopefully into a store. And that's also where we work with a retailer to see, what data they can provide on same store sales to see did that lead to an increase of, sales, because ultimately that's, the goal. But we can also see, what return visitors look like, where we can see, hey, you might be running, like you said, a free weed ad, and someone is coming in, and are they returning for a second visit? Because if you get the return customer, ultimately that's part of your natural rate of attrition. But you want to see that board work, not just in driving new customer sales, but keeping existing customers coming in. So we're able to leverage that with them to ultimately see what's successful.
Jenna, is it successful to sell ounces of weed for $25?
Do you want my personal opinion or my professional opinion?
Yeah, let's not bullshit each other. I mean, we're on stage here.
Honestly, I think that it's bullshit to sell it for that low amount.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I honestly believe that right now, and actually Mike Delora said it the best at the MICIA event, is that we need to stop running each other to the ground. That is what we are doing.
Willy, tell us a little bit about your experience in other states. I mean, the price compression thing is, Michigan is ground zero for that, right?
Sure. So luckily, we got out of Michigan before the price compressed too much. But when I entered the Missouri market, it was still medical at the time, and the highest priced pounds were $4,500 per pound, pre-packed with lots of marketing. And we didn't have much of a marketing budget at the time. It was a bootstrapped business, different brand than Vlasic, but I started selling pounds for $5,000 in turkey bags. And my marketing was my relationships at the end of the day, and it was my belief in how quality the flower was. And I thought it was insane I was selling $5,000 pounds, but when I looked at the weed on the market for $4,500, and mid-Zuri is what I called it at the time, because there were so many mids, I was like, my weed's better than this, so I need to sell it for more. And even though I didn't have the marketing budget that those companies did, I went to the events, I connected with the people, I met the bud tenders, I talked to them, I smoked with them, and I used a very grassroots approach because I had to, and was able to get the highest price for a pound ever sold in the state.
You think we'll ever see an increase in Michigan north of $1,000 a pound on the marketing side?
Not for an average pound, I mean, there's going to be pre-packed brands that get more than that, but that's that top 2, 3, 5% of smokers buying that product, and there's still going to be great flower for under it. It's just certain brands are able to command a premium because of, clever marketing and, good use of dollars at the end of the day.
Sky Patel, you can also help people save some money, right, with what you're doing at Kairos Labs. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience in the industry and what you can do to help people improve their bottom line.
Sure. So I think this is one of the most unique markets. As managing partner of Prime 7, we've got operations in technology, healthcare, real estate, finance, and this is one of the only markets where a lot of the financial impact to the businesses operating is in the control of a third party that you have no control over, and it's the testing labs, right? So having consistent, reliable testing is extremely important to keep cash flow moving. You can't afford a daily mistake on the part of a testing lab could lock up some product of yours. It could cause a delay, and then now all of a sudden you're wondering, how do you cover payroll, right? So part of improving the bottom line looking at testing labs is just the consistency and the reliability. As product volume goes up, as businesses are expanding, it becomes a much larger risk than it used to be before. If the margins are not as there, if you don't have as much cash to cover drops, I think that that's one of the areas that will start getting much more attention.
Yeah, Mansour, I'd love to ask you a little bit, maybe a more specific question to the city of Detroit. I recently read about a proposal to limit the billboard use in cannabis. What is your opinion of all that? And
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting draft. I mean, I look at cannabis as a space as, right now they can't advertise on, television, most radio, social won't really take their money outside of, X or Twitter right now in very targeted ways. And, billboards are a medium that you can utilize. And we do have the data that shows that, over 80% of the people driving by are above the age of 21. So, obviously we have state spacing that we already have to abide by, but to make it harder in the city of Detroit, when you have over 75 retailers, most are small businesses, it really puts a strain on their ability to, to grow and be successful. So, for myself, it's one of those things where, there are going to be other clients that want to advertise in the city of Detroit, but for a lot of these independent small businesses, removing their only avenue for advertising would make it pretty difficult for them to survive, and they might ultimately, choose not to open up or close down or sell to a larger, conglomerate, and it, puts a strain on that, that marketing ability.
Jason, we're seeing some of that consolidation happening. I mean, are some of your customers starting to have conversations about, partnering up with each other? What could that look like for them, for their enterprise, for their team? I mean, how does, typically sometimes an employee of a cannabis business can't get a loan, right? I mean, these things are challenges that people have to overcome.
Yeah, that's a really great point, actually, and one that we have heard loud and clear. And so we have seen some of our members, we refer to our customers as members, we have seen a few of our members discuss collaborations like that and even merging and going in on projects together all over the country, actually. But I think as far as what your point about, their employees having struggles getting financial services, that's a real problem. And we've even had people tell us that some major banks out there with no notice are just shutting them down while they're on business trips. Their credit cards get shut down or whatever it might be. And so we do need to be very clear that we can help all of your employees with their mortgages or their credit cards or anything they might need. And we've been at Community Choice loyal to this space since the very beginning. We were one of just a few that were actually really there at the beginning. And we plan on being here for you, and for anyone who might need something, please let them know there's an organization out there that actually wants to help them, and at fair, competitive pricing.
Jenna, how are you handling this internally with your team? I mean, do you have challenges with people coming in and say, hey, I can't obtain financing for mortgages or for car loans? I mean, where do they go, right? They come to you.
They do, and this tends to be something that we deal with probably on a weekly basis, honestly. A lot of our employees who are attempting to buy a house or buy a car, they send their verification of employment over to the HR department. The moment that we put that we are in the cannabis industry, they get a denial. So honestly, what we're currently doing is referring our employees back to Community Choice, as that is the bank that we currently use. So we just kind of give them the resources and materials that they need to be successful, to continue to be in this industry without having to feel they need to be in a more quote-unquote legitimate industry.
Oh, it's definitely legit.
Yes, it is.
That is for sure. Sky, I'd love to hear your approach on raising capital while maintaining control of the business. I would say maybe Willy's experience a little different than yours, and both of you are kind of rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, so capital can come in two forms, right? You can take debt or you can take investor equity. Debt has been challenging to obtain for cannabis businesses. It really comes down to having the right structure ahead of time, that you're able to qualify for debt that I don't think typically people think you can get for cannabis. Real estate is a familiar one, but you can get favorable equipment financing. You can get favorable even working capital financing for cannabis businesses without collateral. Typically, friends of mine in the industry are dealing with large down payments for equipment, 3 years, very high interest rates. It is very possible to get things with no money down for your equipment, longer terms, simple interest under 10%. The advantage of debt is that you're maintaining control of the business, but debt has danger. It's like payroll, the payments don't stop. If you can't make the payments, your business might stop. So with investor capital, that also has its own challenges, right? So investor capital is nice, you're getting seed money, but sometimes you have to be careful of how you set that up. You need to make sure you've got the right legal advice to start with. There's a lot of very well-qualified, prestigious law firms in attendance at this event, and you don't really want to get your operating agreements off LegalZoom. It's important to make sure that bringing someone on, you understand what that equity can mean. Just because someone's a minority owner doesn't mean that it's going to be a minority say. They still have rights, and you want to be careful about the timing of these things. I think also being realistic with the timeline is important. You may not have the credibility and the track record initially. You may have to give up a lot more to an investor. You may want to retain control, but it's okay if your first venture, you take the investment money and give up control, exit it in 2 years, you've got the track record now, the next venture that you can do, you're in control instead. So I think of the two raises to get capital, there's a lot to consider, and getting the right advice and structuring things correctly can really protect you.
Willy, what's been your experience?
So with our other state investments, I mean, Vlasic Labs, the brand, has been self-funded by me, my brothers, and my dad, and we've now brought in a little bit of external capital there. But like for Missouri, we raised $4.5 million from friends and family. For Vegas, we raised about 11, and the biggest thing is making it make sense for the investors and make sense for you. And the more deals that we do, the less deer-eyed optimistic we get. We try to be ultra conservative, and at the end of the day, what I've found a lot of investors are interested in is convertible options where they can have some sort of debt with interest in the short term, but also the upside of converting it into equity in the long term. Excuse me. And at the end of the day, not giving the farm away. What we've done, while we've retained board seats on these other businesses that we've raised capital for, we don't personally own the majority of the Las Vegas operation. We didn't personally own the majority of the Missouri operation. But as long as a combination of you and the investors or operators you trust own majority and have majority of the board, you can still guide the business in the right direction as long as you can all stay on the same page. So just be careful about who you pick and make sure you're aligned. And then, if you want to maintain 100% of your brand, you may have to consider licensing it. Like for Vegas, we've licensed the Vlasic brand into Project Dune. They're separate investments, which we own part of in both, but one's our baby and one's a new investment.
Thank you. Jason, help us with simplifying compliance. How can banks use technology to make cannabis industry compliance easier?
Another great question, because a good banking partner like Community Choice Credit Union, a little biased, partners with compliance partners. We happen to use Shield, but we're very open to feedback from Green Check and others as well. And when you have your banking relationship with an organization like ours that you trust, our job is to protect you. And so we're there for you, and I really think having not just the compliance partner, but even just some of the tools like in-house, for instance, we have an entire team that we have invested millions of dollars in for this community to protect you, to make sure you're in compliance, to reach out to you, and we're really proud of that. And so I think having the right partner is really important, because it can be technology or it can just be a team that is on your side, keeping you protected, and that's what you need.
Jenna, how can cannabis companies align their marketing strategies with HR initiatives to create a cohesive company culture that appeals to both internal and your customers?
I think, again, one of the biggest pieces that are overlooked is that your employee is your internal brand ambassador. They're going to be the ones that are out there speaking on the company, what is going on inside, what is happening with your product. So I think that it's definitely beneficial for the Human Resources Department to work directly with the Marketing Department to establish, outside of what the product is, what is our involvement in the community? What are we giving back as an organization to the community? What are we giving back to our employees? How are we investing in our employees? We shouldn't look as a production position coming in and, they're only going to be in that production position. Most people that are coming into cannabis, they're coming in for whatever position they can get in. They just want their foot in the door. But ultimately, they have career goals within the cannabis industry. So I think that it's HR's job to make sure that we work with the marketing department to establish great recruitment processes to show them that as an organization we're going to provide them with career paths, we're going to provide them with learning opportunities, something to move forward in this industry outside of just your standard position.
There really is no standard position, right? Chief People Officer is a unique one.
That is for sure.
So like, a lot of times I hear about retailers going through some challenges with maybe a younger demographic of people that work for them day in and day out, and they maybe don't show up on time, or they maybe call in sick, or just don't call at all. Why is that such a challenge to attract the type of talent that has a vested, like, this is my job, this is my career, I love to come to this every single day? Why does the cannabis industry, maybe that's a loaded question, but why does it have that issue?
I think the reason why cannabis has that issue is because we're not putting policies in place to stop it from happening. A lot of companies are not investing in their HR or people operations. That's what we're there for. We're your HR strategy, to put attendance policies in place to eliminate that, to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations with those employees. Why are you not coming into work? More than likely, there's going to be something going on at home, maybe having an employee assistant program where you can offer your employees free counseling, telemedicine, something along those lines. So I think going back to it is definitely involving your HR department from a strategic level can help to put those policies in place to start eliminating some of those behaviors.
Willie, have you seen any of that on your side, working nationally?
For sure. I mean, recruiting across the country is always tough. Right now I'm trying to find a brand ambassador in Reno, and it's 8 hours from where our operation is in Vegas, and being able to cover these entire states, even on the CBD side, we try to give the same support that you'd expect from a THC vendor, and so that means lots of brand ambassadors, which means lots of independent contractors typically to start, especially when you enter into a new market. You want to cover every corner of the state. Doesn't always make sense to hire 5 full-time BAs as soon as you enter the market. So, I think one of the most educational things for me has been, we try to treat everybody like family, but like, how do you make it make sense for those people that are, maybe they're part-time, maybe they're BAs, maybe they're independent contractors, and those fusion roles, you know what I mean? Because like, I know for a fact, like, my full-time people have everything they possibly need, but I want to make sure that we give the same support to folks who maybe only are working a limited amount of hours or are even a contractor. They're still part of the family.
Willy, what are we missing collectively in this industry? Like, what are we overlooking that could be so simple, but like maybe you implemented in your business that you could kind of peel back and share with us?
You said it earlier. I mean, don't forget about the people. You know, we have the chief people officer here and a lot of incredible people in the room. And, you know, whether that be your employees, your investors, your customers, it all starts with them. You know, we're not IBM selling computers to General Motors. We're selling weed to each other, and this industry is still a baby. I mean, everyone thinks it's matured so much, and like I've seen a lot, you know, in the 8 or 9 years I've been playing in the metric space, but it's still a 2-3-year-old toddler running around like a chicken with its head off, and there's still plenty of time to get involved. Even if you're new to the industry, don't feel like that's a bad thing, because we need fresh faces and we need fresh energy. And you know, us old folks, we're getting tired, so we need more people always. So just don't forget about the people.
Sky, what are we missing?
Really do just want to echo what is being said about people and making sure that you've got a clear idea of where you want to go, how are you bringing on the right people that align with that, and being very careful about the team that you build, right? Because successful business is about execution. Execution is done by people. It's not ideas or a clever trick or one marketing campaign. It's always about execution. You can't get consistency without good people. You're not going to get the right strategy without the right people. So making sure that you take it as seriously as developing your product, you should develop your people, make sure that you retain them, and get the right people to start with.
Mansour, are you seeing more retailers taking billboards, or is it brands? Is it a combination of two?
Yeah, we're starting to see that kind of shift over from, you know, well, not really just retailers, but now having the brands, you know, either co-branded on the billboard or advertising by themselves. I mean, you look at, you know, your traditional media environment, you have, you know, Pepsi and Coca-Cola advertising. You still have Meijer, but you see those brands advertising and promoting their product and, you know, their lifestyle and so on. And now it's starting to see that, you know, the brands themselves are starting to put themselves out there, put them on, you know, billboards, or saying, you know, Gold Crown available at jars or something like that, because, you know, it is at the end of the day about some of these brands and growing that. And now you do have a lot of supply on the market. So before, where, you know, there was a nice shortage of supply going back a few years, and it was, you know, you'd walk in and it was what was available today. Now you can walk in and the shelves are full. So what's going to draw the consumer to that particular product at the end of the day? So we're starting to see that shift, and I think that's going to play a big part, you know, in the next couple of years, because, you know, now you can't just start a brand and not do anything. You have to, you know, have a brand around it and, you know, people around that, and know what your consumer you're trying to serve and how to relate to that consumer.
Jenna, what are we missing, and what are you most excited about?
I think the thing that we're missing the most is that it's great to have a brand, but your brand needs to stand out from others. And the way to stand out from others is to show your commitment to the community. I know I'm saying the same things over and over again, but it's basic. It's basic information, your people, your community. And I think that that's one thing that that the cannabis industry sets apart from others, is that we're willing to get in and be a part of the community and help the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be about product. It can be about product education, or, you know, what you're doing to offer for your community or your employees. So that's basically where I'm at.
No, I mean, it's a good thing to reinforce. Jason, your business is the people business. What are we missing on the relationship side?
You know, if there's one thing we've learned at Community Choice, it's that we have to, no pun intended, grow with our members. And so even today we have John, do a little wave. Linder here with us today. We know that you need convenience and access. And we know that when you have something good on the horizon, we have to be there for you, and we have to grow with you. And so I think the one thing that's most important is really understanding the relationship with everybody, because they're all different. And then two, the comments made about the community and the good and so forth, that's right. I mean, we're giving, this industry in Michigan alone has $200 million in tax revenue, and you don't hear about that. It's going to schools, it's helping people, and you all are paying that. And so we need to do a good job, even at the credit union, explaining to the community when we do our advertising and our marketing that you're all doing a lot of good things for social causes, and you just don't hear about it. So I think that's another thing that's an easy win for everyone in this room. We really need to remind people that we're making some serious contributions. Any final advice, Willie?
Free the prisoners. Come to the Vlasic Classic and help us free the prisoners.
Actually, be a little more specific about that, because you've invested a lot of time, resources. You got a golf outing that you do annually.
So we have the Vlasic Classic down in the Ozarks in Missouri. We also have it at St. John's Resort in Plymouth, Michigan. Just hosted the first annual Michigan one. Coming in June, we donate all the proceeds to the Last Prisoner Project. We're also adding a Las Vegas tournament this coming year, and it's a weekend of charity, networking, and fun. It's all about breaking down barriers with the community, connecting with your B2B peers, and having fun while you do it.
So Jenna kind of touched on that, right? Being in the community, being out there, community-driven events. How has participating in this fundraiser helped support your brand? Can you measure that?
Incredibly. After the Missouri one this year, we closed 19 new retailers in the immediate month following. After the Michigan one, we closed 14 new retailers in that same month. And these are states we've been around in for a long time. I've been in Missouri for 4 years. I've been selling product here for forever, it feels like. And, doing something good for the community and seeing all the deals that can be made between the retailers and the brands at the event, and, the good that we're doing. It's a $3.3 billion industry in Michigan. The least we can do is raise 25, 50 grand to donate to help get the 43,000 people out of jail that are serving for this plant. And that's my main goal as far as the tournament goes. The community is great and the business is great, but it's all about freeing those prisoners, because while they're still locked up, we're very blessed to be doing what we're doing.
So doing well, doing business, but also building a bridge to the community and helping out, that makes you feel good at night. Jenna, can you give us an example of some of the events that you guys love to participate in, or what brings you the most joy?
Absolutely. So over the summer, we actually participated in a backpack drive where we had our local community, our brand ambassadors, and our sales department work together to get, I don't know the exact amount, but they did get quite a few backpacks put together for a backpack drive, stood outside and gave it out to the community. We also like to participate during Thanksgiving, whether we purchase turkeys for our employees or at previous companies, we actually did something called Operation Turkey that was with High Life Farms. They're very, very well known for that. So that is where we would work directly with the local grocer who would prepare meal boxes for the community, and we would give it out to the community. I think just letting the community know what type of career paths and I guess future is in this industry is definitely something that we like to participate in.
Love that. I don't really have much time for any questions. What I will do is say thank you to all of you for participating. I know that they're all going to stay here if you want to approach them for any questions, but how about a round of applause for our first panel?